They weren't looking for love. They just showed up to a parent-teacher meeting. She's Brooke, a single mom, a pastry chef who heals hearts with sweetness. He's Charles, a single dad, a lawyer who learned how to be strong in silence. Their kids shared one desk, Dylan and Grace, and one day, they seated their parents together too. Coffee after school, unrushed conversations, looks warmer than words, a first kiss, soft like a promise, a house that stopped feeling empty, a cake baked with love, a child's hug that became the start of a family. And the moment he went down on one knee, not for romance, but for forever. Because sometimes the greatest love doesn't start with perfection, but with two kids sharing one desk.
Love Stories Max. Welcome to my channel. Enjoy watching, friends.
One desk between them. I always believed that parent-teacher meetings were a kind of minor punishment for loving your child too much. You sit on a tiny chair clearly not designed for adults, hold a notebook, to look responsible, and silently pray your kid won't be the one introduced with the phrase, "We need to talk." Dylan sat perfectly straight that evening, like a little soldier, and kept whispering to me, "Mom, I didn't do anything." "I know," I whispered back. "But that doesn't mean the teacher knows that." And that's when I saw him. Charles. Of course, I didn't know his name yet. I just noticed. A man with warm eyes, a slightly tired smile, and a little girl with curly hair sitting next to Dylan. "That's Grace," Dylan whispered, leaning toward me. "We sit at the same desk. She always lends me a spare pencil." I looked at the girl. She was seriously explaining something to her dad, gesturing with her small hands, and he listened as if she were giving a lecture on quantum physics. And for some reason, I thought, he's a good dad. Which, as it turns out, is a very dangerous thought. When the teacher started talking about the curriculum, Dylan tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, what?" "Grace said we sit together now because we're calm." "That's a compliment. She says you're pretty." I nearly choked on air. At that exact moment, Charles looked up at me. Our eyes met. I smiled. He smiled back, a little shy, very sincere. After the meeting, we almost simultaneously walked toward our kids' desks. "Your son," he began. "Your daughter," I said at the same time. We laughed, easily, like people who hadn't laughed freely in a long time. "I'm Charles." "Brooke." He shook my hand, warm, a bit hesitant. "Looks like our kids are desk partners." "Yes," I smiled. "And apparently co-conspirators." Dylan and Grace were standing nearby, gripping their backpacks like shields. "They're good friends," Charles said. "I can tell," I replied. Dylan didn't forget his pencil today for the first time ever. "Grace packs 3, he said proudly. "Just in case." I don't know exactly how it happened, but we walked out of the school together. Then came the little things. Shared mornings by the school doors. He always arrived 2 minutes early. I arrived right on time, coffee in a travel mug. "Always caramel syrup?" he asked once. "Do you always notice things like that?" "Only the important ones." We talked about the kids. About how hard it is to be the only adult in the house. About evenings that feel too quiet after your child falls asleep. He told me how he learned to braid Grace's hair using YouTube videos. I told him how Dylan taught me to build wrong Lego castles because that way they're more interesting. And every time our kids ran ahead, we walked a little slower. As if we weren't rushing. As if we were afraid to name what this was becoming. One day Dylan said, "Mom, can Grace's dad come to the park with us?" "He's not your dad, but he's nice." I looked at Charles. He smiled awkwardly. "If you don't mind?" The only thing I minded was that my heart already knew the answer. At the park, he held Grace's hand, and I caught myself liking the way he looked from a distance. The way he laughed, the way he listened, the way he wasn't afraid to be gentle. When Dylan fell and scraped his knee, Charles pulled out a dinosaur bandage from his pocket. "Grace says dinosaurs heal faster." Dylan believed him. So did I. That evening, as we said goodbye by the school, he suddenly said, "Brooke, I haven't felt this calm around someone in a long time." I swallowed. Me neither. Our kids were already in the cars. The streetlights were soft, and I realized this meeting wasn't accidental. It was the meeting of two people who had already been through a lot. And two children who, without knowing it, seated us at the same desk. And maybe gave us a chance to write a new story. Together. Grace's birthday fell on a Saturday. Charles called ahead of time, a little hesitant, like he didn't want to impose. "We'd love it if you and Dylan could come a bit early, to help set things up." I said, of course, before I even thought about what that meant. And then I spent half the night baking. The pastry chef in me doesn't know how to make just something simple. I made a soft vanilla sponge, strawberry cream, and a thin layer of white chocolate. On top, tiny sugar flowers and the name Grace, written carefully, as if it meant more than just a cake. Their house was big, bright, with a pool in the backyard and wide windows. And half empty, not in a sad way. Just a lot of space missing warmth. A few pieces of furniture. A framed photo of Grace. Books. And a silence that belonged to a man used to being strong on his own. Charles greeted us in jeans and a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves. "You brought?" He froze when he saw the cake. I may have gone overboard, I smiled. "No," he said softly. "You made it perfect." Grace ran out barefoot. "Is that my cake?" "It is," I said. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." She looked at me for a few seconds, like she was making a very serious decision. Then she stepped forward. She hugged me, with her small arms, and gently kissed my cheek. I froze. "Thank you, Brooke," she whispered. I looked up, and saw Charles. He was standing a little aside, watching as if his house had just filled with light. We decorated the backyard together. Dylan kept blowing up balloons and popping them. Grace laughed so loudly it filled the entire space. Charles brought me 2 cups of coffee. "I'm a lawyer," he said suddenly. I know how to defend people in court, but I'm not very good at making a home feel warm." I looked at him. "You already are." He smiled. Not confidently. Honestly. And you? I'm a pastry chef. That much is obvious. I just like making something sweet for people who need it. We stood there quietly, and the silence felt easy. When the guests left, the sun was already setting. The kids were eating cake by the pool, covered in frosting and happiness. Charles stood beside me. "Brooke," he paused. "My house hasn't felt this alive in a long time." "It's not the house," I said softly. "It's the people in it." He looked at me longer than necessary. And I knew. We both felt it. No rush, no fear, just something real. That night, driving home, I thought that maybe sometimes love doesn't begin with a kiss, but with a cake, a child's hug, and a home that had been waiting to feel warm again. Our first real date didn't start with the words, "This is a date." It started with a message from Charles late in the evening. "Grace is asleep. If you don't mind, I'd love to invite you for coffee." Just the two of us. I stared at the screen longer than necessary. Not because I was unsure, but because, for the first time in a long while, I wanted to answer honestly instead of carefully. "I'd like that," I typed. He picked me up himself. No rush, no grand gestures. Charles wore a dark coat and that soft smile that only appeared when he was a little nervous. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. "You do too," I replied. And it wasn't just politeness. We went to a small cafe by the waterfront. Soft music played, candlelight reflected in the windows, and the air smelled like coffee and vanilla, a scent that always makes me feel at home. "I can't remember the last time I was on a date," he admitted with a small smile. "Me neither," I said. "I think we're both a little rusty. But, still alive," he added. We laughed. Softly, easily. He told me about his work as a lawyer. About days when he had to be sharp and composed. And evenings when the house felt too quiet. I told him about my bakery. About how I love waking up early while the city is still asleep. About dough that always knows my mood. "You're a very warm person, Brooke," he said suddenly. I lowered my gaze. "I just know how to take care of what I love." After coffee, we went for a walk. The night was calm. Streetlights shimmered on the water. He walked beside me, not touching. Yet I felt his presence in every step. We stopped by the railing. I leaned against it. He stepped a little closer. "I feel like," he started, then paused. "What?" "Like I don't want to rush. But I don't want to stay silent either." I smiled. "I understand." He gently took my hand. Warm, as if asking permission. I didn't pull away. "I haven't felt this peaceful around a woman in a long time," he said. "Me too." We didn't kiss. Not because we didn't want to. But because we didn't need to. He walked me home. We stood by the door for a few extra seconds. "Thank you for tonight," he said. "Thank you for being honest." When I stepped inside my apartment, my heart was beating quietly and steadily. Not from excitement, but from the feeling that everything was unfolding exactly the way it should. Our first kiss didn't happen when we expected it to. And that's exactly why it was right. We were walking after dinner. Just side by side. No plans, no rush. The autumn air was soft, the city breathing slowly. Charles carried my scarf in his hand. "You're cold again," he said. "A little." He gently draped it over my shoulders, lingering a second longer than necessary. We stopped at a crosswalk. Streetlights reflected in his eyes. "Brooke," he said quietly, "I'm afraid of scaring you. And I'm afraid you won't do it." I smiled. He laughed, took a breath, and leaned in. The kiss was gentle, unhurried, not rushed, just a promise. I remember thinking, this is how people kiss when they don't want to lose each other. Dylan and Grace grew closer almost without anyone noticing. First, homework together at the kitchen table. Then, little drawings left for each other. "Mom," Dylan said one day, "Grace says we're like a team." "I like that," I replied. "Me too." They started waiting for each other after school. Dylan held the door for Grace. She fixed his collar. Charles once whispered to me, "They're better at this than we are." "They're just not afraid," I said. Charles invited me over for dinner. Said he wanted to celebrate something. Didn't say what. His house wasn't empty anymore. The kitchen smelled like food. Kids' things were everywhere. The air felt alive. After dinner, the kids went to watch a movie. We stayed on the patio by the pool. "Brooke," he said, a little nervous, "I've spent years defending people in court. But tonight, I want to protect us." He pulled out a small box. "Simple, quiet. I don't promise perfection," he said. "But I promise to be there. Always." "Yes," I said before he even finished. He smiled, and slipped the ring onto my finger. At that moment, Grace and Dylan ran outside. "Did she say yes?" Grace asked. "She did," Charles said. Grace hugged me. Dylan hugged Charles. And I realized, this wasn't just an engagement. It was a home we chose for each other. Our wedding wasn't loud. It was real. A warm day. The garden by Charles's house. A white tent, fresh flowers, and a pool reflecting the sky. I wore a simple dress. No extra sparkle. Just soft fabric and bare shoulders. Charles later said that was the moment he stopped breathing. Dylan carried the rings. Very seriously. Grace held a basket of petals and scattered them not ahead of me, but at my feet. So I could walk on flowers, not past them. When I reached Charles, he whispered, "You're home." And that was all I needed to hear. Our vows were simple. About support. About choosing each other every day. About children who had made us a family long before we said, "I do." When he slid the ring onto my finger, I saw tears in his eyes. And I didn't hide mine. A family doesn't appear in a single day. It grows from small things. From mornings when Dylan wakes up first and makes toast for everyone. From evenings when Grace reads to me while I bake. From Charles coming home late but always kissing my forehead. Our house filled with sound. With laughter. With footsteps. With life. And I realized, love isn't about grand promises. It's about staying. 1 year after the wedding, I woke up to the smell of coffee. And laughter. In the kitchen, Dylan and Grace were arguing over whose turn it was to do the dishes. Charles stood at the stove wearing my shirt. "Good morning, my wife," he said, kissing me. I looked at them and thought about how once we were just two tired single parents at a school meeting. Now we were a family. I went to my bakery. Charles went to court. The kids went to school, holding hands. That evening, we gathered together again. At the same table, as always. And I know this now. Sometimes the most beautiful stories don't begin with a fairy tale, but with a small classroom chair and two children sharing one desk.